We'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Harrison County Board of Education for December 6th. Is it December 6th, 2022, rescheduled from yesterday, which was rescheduled from the original date. So we're back to almost normal, but at 5 o'clock instead of 6. Stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brings us down to special recognitions and presentations, and we have 3 tonight. First up, South Harrison High School Future Farmers of America recognition. Ms. Stutler. Thank you.
Sure. And have their names on there?
Yes. I gave him that sheet of paper for everybody.
And the pictures in the paper so much I recognize them all. When they come. So we have South Harrison High FFA here. Like I said, you guys are on the paper a lot. And we've had them on the app, but they're here tonight we've had a lot of accomplishments with this group. And if you're here as a parent or as a teacher, you should be very proud of them because I think they've gotten to experience a lot of different things and are learning a lot of leadership skills and through the FFA. It's a very active program. So thank you to the teacher. If you want to come up when we recognize Mr. Lockhart.
Yeah, we were up with the Farm Bureau had a competition at Quiz Bowl.
Yeah, I recognized the direct decorations in the background. I wasn't even sure, so.
Yeah, that's where they held it, so.
Well, so we have the 2022 state champion nursery landscape career development team. And that would be Bennett Lou, Olivia Marshall, Sierra Hott, and Sean Bell. Any of those guys, if you want to come up? Because you're the team captain, right?
Sierra.
That's what it says. It says it right there, I believe it, right?
Thank you.
So this is your state champion nursery landscape career development team, so congratulations. You want to say anything about this?
They were just a few points shy of breaking a team record for the contest that's been going on for about 36 years, so. They
Very
worked
nice.
very, very hard.
All right, we'll recognize. I'll just probably keep you up here because I'm sure some of you might be the same. This is the state champion West Virginia Farm Bureau Quiz Bowl. So-
They're all at practice other than
Okay, we have
Spencer and Olivia.
Spencer, Nolan, Michael Radcliffe, Hope Woods, and Olivia Marshall. Wrestling and basketball at that time of year, right? I do feel like I know you guys because I see them on paper.
Angela, do you have one for Olivia?
Is there not one in there? No, really, I wish there is.
This on the quiz bowl?
You have it. All right.
Doug, you
Give me the Debbie Cattle one.
Yeah,
Oh.
I put the two. I got my speech folder.
I don't have it. I'll have to look on the other one.
There you are. There you go.
Was she there?
Yes, she was.
Oh,
Then we have the state champion senior dairy cattle team. And that's Spencer Nolan, Ashley Martin, and Michael Radcliffe. They're at practice as well, so. me what the dairy cattle, what do you do for the dairy cattle team?
So for the 4-H,
Curious.
yeah, so for the 4-H one, you judge few sets of dairy, you judge a few sets of different classes of dairy cattle. There'll be 4 different, cows and they'll all be the same breed.
Okay,
And then they'll take 2, usually 2 of the classes that you judged, and you'll have to give reasons on them, which is just basically saying how you placed them and why you placed them this way.
kind of like a dog show, right? But you're using
Yeah,
cattle?
I'm used to that, yeah.
Same thing?
Basically, I mean, I place them.
You run around with someone.
See, we're not the ones leading them, we're the ones judging them.
You're the
So we're the
judge.
judges. And
Okay,
There's
you're
other
the-
people that are leading
okay.
them around to do.
You ever set a brief
like that?
Very
No.
Very nice. Well, thank you for coming in and spending the evening here for just a few minutes with us, and congratulations. You guys are doing a great job.
And I'd like to say,
Yeah.
we have a lot with the, especially the South Harrison FFA, and you've been here a good deal. The thing that most people don't get, you think future farmers and that's what you're doing, but I've not had anyone come in here that wasn't a good speaker. I don't know that's part of the oratory that you have there, but everyone in the club ends up being a really good speaker, which is a skill, whether you use farming from here on out, the speaking portion will serve you well. But everyone I've heard from that class, it seems to be an emphasis that public speaking. So
I have something to say on that. A lot of people do think FFA is farmers and that there's a lot more to it. There's none of, I had an opportunity to go a lot of places with John as a parent. All these kids are going to be ahead above a lot of other children just because they can speak. There's none of these kids that couldn't walk in to a job interview right now and do an excellent job just because of the speaking and what Mr. Lockhart and the teachers there have done. So they deserve a lot of the credit.
and I still hope that they enjoy farming because we do need farmers.
Oh, they get a lot of that too, but there's a lot more involved than just learning.
Oh, it shows. I'm just want to let you know that it shows. Their speaking is second to none.
If you ever get a chance to go to a banquet of theirs at the end of the school year, then you'll really see, what it's all about. It's really,
I was able to attend their last one, and the awards that they were giving out
Yeah.
on a state and national level were just amazing. So you guys do a great job, Mr. Lockhart especially.
Thank you, guys.
You also have a teacher there, Mr. Kidwell as well.
Yeah.
So there's a pair there, so keep up the good work.
It's a great program.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That moves us down to this James Kirby, Mr. Kirby, our attendance director, so. Usually he doesn't have certificates.
He's also a representative of South.
no, he does.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Right. You don't want to
Graduated in 1981.
4-year-old.
Hey. We always played RW in basketball. Mr. Hope was always the coach. They always beat us. I still have my 20.
If you guys need to leave, you can, even though he's the attendance director, it doesn't count here.
I don't know.
He can't do anything to you.
Okay, so the reason and the purpose that I'm here tonight is Ms. Souther and I had a conversation about possibly talking to you all about what chronic absenteeism actually is, because there seems to be a lot of question about that. And I know some of the folks that sit on the board were previous administrators in schools and not talking about age, but back in those days, we didn't have chronic absenteeism. It wasn't identified. And basically what you guys focused on was what the attendance percentages are, which I've provided that form to you as well. It's the one that's a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow on it. And those are the attendance percentages. Now, those attendance percentages look quite a bit lower than what you may have seen as an administrator several years ago. And that has a lot to do with a change that the State Board of Education made in how they view attendance. You'll notice that's the chronic absenteeism page that has a lot of the red on there. That gives you the chronic absenteeism rates for every school in the county and what it is for the county. Chronic absenteeism is basically identified at 180 days. If a child misses 18 days of school, they're considered chronically absent. It doesn't matter if it's a doctor's excuse, a parent excuse. It doesn't matter if the family is ill, there's a death in the family. It doesn't matter if it's excused or unexcused. It all goes against that chronic absenteeism rate. You'll also look at the long sheet that I provided. That also identifies all of the absence codes that a parent can turn a note in for their child's absence. At the very top of that, you'll notice the A1 code, the A2 code, the H1 code, H2 code, X1, X2, the B1 and the B2 codes. Those codes do not count against a school's attendance percentage or their chronic absenteeism rate. The A1 means a child attended somewhere else in the county. It could have been, they could be in an alternative setting. They could be in a detention center. They could be in another location participating in education. The A2 is a half day. H1 is homebound. We're all familiar with homebound and what that means. That child's bound to the home for health conditions, and we provide education in the home for that child. X1, X2, those are school approved activities, for the most part, your extracurricular that occur during the day. Your B1, B2, that's for the bus not running. In addition to that, there's also another code that is not on this sheet. When the State Department put together the new code and the new WEWA system, we're not able to print this sheet with the new code on there. The new code is a V1 code, or a virtual code. During COVID, we were using the V1 code for those children that were under quarantine for COVID. That also did not count against the county's attendance percentages or their chronic absenteeism rates. All the rest of the excuses that are on this list count against the county's chronic absenteeism rate and their attendance percentage. Yes, it is high. However, it's difficult for a school system to have a conversation with a family and say, you know, I understand Johnny's got, you know, a doctor's excuse for the next 4 days. We really like for you to send him to school anyway. It's difficult for us to have that conversation, and I don't think it's ethical that we have that conversation with families. It is a problem. There are several physicians in the area who have a tendency to write excuses for 30 days at a time for children to miss school for a variety of reasons. By the time that excuse is over with, that child's already chronically absent before we're ever able to make contact with the family or work with them in any way. That's a problem. And it is statewide. And I know that there are other counties that are fighting with that as well. This is a difficult process to be held accountable as a county for a student's attendance that they don't have control of. We can't control what physicians do when they write those excuses for those children. On a couple of different occasions, I had the opportunity to meet with State Board of Education representatives who are responsible for the attendance piece in Charleston, and it suggested to them that they go meet with several of the physicians' conferences, asked to be a speaker there and present information on, you know, how many days a physician writes a note for and how that impacts a child's progress in education. To my knowledge, that's never happened. That would be probably one of the best things that we could do, is meet with some physicians and get to the bottom of that and see if we can curb that a little bit. In addition to that, we have approximately between 300 and 400 kids in the court system for truancy right now. Those are for the unexcused absences. Those kids that we have in the court system for that are monitored by the judges. There's DHHR services in the home. We are addressing that. And in addition to that, there's also juvenile abuse or neglect hearings that can occur. One thing that we do on a regular basis, that if a child misses 50 days of school, whether it's excused or unexcused, we look at that pretty closely and begin moving in the direction of abuse and neglect. Child missing 50 days of school is educational neglect, unless there is a very serious illness that is keeping that child home. If we're going from quick care to quick care, that's not a serious illness. So that's vetted very closely by judges and DHHR as well as my staff. In addition to that, we do 3-day meetings and or letters to the families when the kid misses 3 unexcused absences. We also do 5 days or more out of my department where we meet with parents and students at the schools. Kids who are 12 years of age and older, we can file a juvenile petition on them, which puts them in circuit court. For children who are younger than that, that usually results in a criminal complaint filed on the parent. Magistrate will issue a warrant for the parent's arrest, and then that is put in the magistrate court system, awaiting law enforcement to make contact with that family and serve that warrant. I will say that that is a problem. Currently, the way the magistrate warrant system works, most of those warrants lay in a computer system and are never sent out to local law enforcement agencies. So those lay there until someone gets pulled over. In addition to that, those warrants can only be served from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Those are a magistrate hour warrant only. They cannot be served after 4 o'clock. They're not a magistrate on duty. It's not a jailable offense on the first offense. So they cannot be served that warrant.
Can it only be served on at home, or can it be at their place of employment?
It can be served anywhere, just like a regular warrant, but it has to be 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And most of the folks that have warrants out for themselves, most of them are either working in the evenings or they rise a little later in the afternoon.
And the problem, just not to jump in on Mr. Kirby, but they used to, when the warrants came, there was a hard copy that went to the sheriff's department, and the sheriff, when they would have a deputy that was available, would go serve those warrants. Now there's nothing printed out. They go into the system, they're there. You have to know what you're looking for. You don't have it. You can't pull up a list of active truancy warrants and then just say, I'm going to go serve those. You have to put the name in and go find that warrant. So if you don't know someone has one, then you don't know. But it used to be there was a stack and they'd send someone out a couple of days and they just take care of all the warrants. Now they don't, because the Supreme Court has a new system and it's just, they're up there and you have to know what you're looking for.
That's right. And before COVID hit, when I would turn one in, we would put it on a list. When I turned another in, we put it on the list. We'd send it to the sheriff's department and then they would send it out for us. That was okay. That required a lot of work on our part because we'd have to keep a spreadsheet and continue to monitor that and then turn that into the sheriff's department and have them recognize that and then go seek those warrants out in the magistrate court section to get that information.
And another problem is that Mr. Kirby can obtain those
Yes,
without law enforcement. The problem is he doesn't have all the identifying information sometimes,
that's correct.
meaning the defendant, which would be the parent. You don't have their social security number,
That's correct.
date of birth. So a lot of law enforcement doesn't want to serve that because they're not 100% sure that that warrant with that name goes with that individual.
That's correct.
So that's been problematic too.
That's correct. The only thing we have typically is an address and sometimes that's not correct. Most of the time, that's not correct. So we're up against the wall. In my office, there's myself. Sarah Starkey is a half-time person. She helps with the elementary schools. She sits here in this building, and we also have another half-time person that sits at United High School, Ashley McGee. She helps also with the elementaries, doing meetings in the schools, but I'm the one that makes the decision for the criminal complaints and for all of the juvenile petitions and any abuse and neglect petitions we may file. You guys have any other questions? Any other information?
Discretionary, so you have the option to
That's correct.
be discretional with.
That's correct.
These codes.
I do.
You said these are state codes?
Yes.
Okay, so I just, there's some on here that are, in my opinion, I mean, military service, verified judicial obligation. I mean, ROTC, would that include military? I mean,
No, those are those kids that are a junior in high school and they go to basic over the summer.
Mhm.
And sometimes they have to do certain activities with that and they are in the military.
Okay,
So they may have to attend certain things during the school year.
Okay.
We also use that as
Well,
well.
no, I know it's
Yeah.
counted religious holidays, counted the absences. I understand it's counted absence, but that's why I asked if you had the option for discretionary,
Yes,
choices in this matter, because some of these things, I think, in my opinion, you shouldn't be held responsible for.
oh, that's right, they shouldn't be,
Mhm.
but State Department of Education
I-
makes that rule.
I
That's
understand
what
that.
I was waiting to say, was it isn't Harrison County
No.
and it isn't Mr. Kirby.
Mhm.
This is a state thing, just so Joe public will understand that.
Yep, it's absolutely the state. The state makes that decision.
And to be chronically absent, it's excused and unexcused. It's just a total
It's total
absence.
seat time,
Seat,
seat time.
that 18.
And really legally, there's nothing we can do with it. Those that are chronically absent, whose absences are excused. There's nothing we can
You
do.
might have 18 doctor's notes. They're
That's right.
excused, but they're still going to show up chronically absent.
Our hands are
And
tied.
the letters can be generated automatically after,
Or what?
the automatic letters that cause so much grief for them
Yes.
being sent.
Absolutely.
And you're not generating this, correct?
Weavis generates those letters.
Yeah.
They do.
So they're just automatic.
You put the information, you ask to run a school and that information comes right out.
Yeah. And those are required to be sent.
They are.
Is that set up in Weavis 2?
Yeah,
Weavis 2.0?
yeah, we finally got that done.
Oh, is that?
That took a little
Those,
while.
those are required to be sent. So when someone gets a letter saying they're going to go to jail for, that, it's not our language, it's
No.
state language.
It's state language.
And it's a certified letter that goes.
We used to send those certified, but they took that out of the code. We no longer send those certified unless there's a specific reason why we want to. We typically just send it in regular mail. And I'll be honest with you, when we were sending them certified, we sent them both certified in regular mail. The certified came back, but the regular mail never did. So what I'm telling you is, no one's going to pick up a certified letter because it's never good news.
Never a check.
No,
So maybe a phone call. Then.
And when they say automatically generated, that doesn't mean Weavis just automatically generates them. Someone has to tell Weavis to generate them, yes?
that's correct.
But you're also required to do. that.
Yes, sir.
Not all.
Yes.
The administrator to local school.
Yeah, with the assistance of the administrator to local school.
And you have to make sure that their attendance is being put in correctly.
And we do,
Yes.
we do. And that's one of the reasons why we have meetings at the school, so we can review that and determine if that was put in correctly. If it's wrong, we'll fix it.
And the other question I have really is, a few years, did they, because the attendance director is in code, that there's attendance director, did they change it to where you could have more than one attendance director?
That, you're only going to have one attendance director. You're going to have an assistant attendance director or attendance workers. I think those are the job codes.
But the assistant attendance director, could they do, they have the ability to do the same?
Yes.
Course.
The attendance
Functions
worker
that
is
you-
not just the assistant.
If it's a professional.
That's right.
And that's my question. I think going forward at some point, I think we need to add to that staff because I know Mr. Kirby lives in the courthouse and sometimes it makes me wonder how you have the ability to get your other work done when you're there for the entire 8-hour day.
I'll be there all day tomorrow.
Exactly.
I have 30 hearings tomorrow.
And say 20 years.
30 hearings. Yeah, and most attorneys don't do 30 hearings in a month or some in a year, or some in a lifetime.
That's right.
But you're there 30 in a day, so.
And next week I have 35.
And I guess that's kind of my feeling down the road when we're starting to look at personnel fees and all that, then your numbers aren't down, they're up.
Yeah, they're up.
And I know abuse neglect cases are the highest they've ever been.
They
So
are.
you don't just have, you have a lot on your plate.
That's right.
And on the back end, before he goes to court, the amount of paperwork that you need to get to court.
Yeah, for yesterday,
For
for
every child.
court yesterday, I started today, or court tomorrow, I started today at 11 o'clock, printing attendance, discipline and grades,
Fine.
and finished at 3 o'clock. Copies and ready to go. So that was a busy day. Plus I went to Nutter Fort and WI today.
We don't want the judge to keep him, but we want him to go and come back.
That's right.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is that Mr. Kirby has a job to do where you're his supervisor. But a judge is also your supervisor.
That's right.
You're listening to two, you have to deal with two folks telling you what to do.
Absolutely. The judge can put me in jail and she can fire me.
Yeah, neither's good.
No,
If he puts you in jail, I mean, that's kind of given, right?
Yeah, it's just a catch-20.
yeah.
How is things working with Weavis 2.0 in attendance? Are they accurate or have the glitches been fixed as much as possible or completely, or where are we?
Well, I can tell you that attendance is correct if it's put in correct. And it calculates correctly. The issue and the problem that we have is that system is very cumbersome. It takes a very long time to navigate through it. I said today I was working on that stuff from 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock. In Weavis Wow or 1.0 Weavis, it would have taken me 35 minutes to do it all. It is very difficult to maneuver.
They have corrected the attendance percentages. I know he's.
That is
working on
correct.
that. And he worked with the group in Charleston to get the attendance letters to work correctly. You got to think at the beginning of the year that none of that was really operational. They have come a ways from where we were at the beginning of the year, and it's corrected, but it's, as somebody said, what used to take 1 click now takes 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very cumbersome.
So, but they have corrected something.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And then,
I'll probably go up there. just
Okay,
so I can
yeah.
See.
and that brings us down to our third item of special recognitions and presentations. And Superintendent Stetler is going to present to the board on elementary mental health supports.
You should have in your packet, just really a one sheeter, it's a front and back, blue and gold. Blue and gold. I'll come down here. See your face. I guess our South Harrison folks will get to hear exciting stuff up there. I just want to begin by saying, this is something as Mr. Kirby was saying with attendance. This is really something that we're, in the last several years, schools have been dealing with, and the concerns are growing. The mental health concerns are growing, and the needs are growing really exponentially. And no one wants to say COVID, but it did increase the concerns because we had children out of school and out of instruction for a while, and those mental health needs, if there was a mental health prior to that concern, it's just that gap's gotten larger as well, not only just the academic side. So, and it is best to have them with us in school, these children, because we're the ones that can provide them the support and the things that they need. Now, that can look very differently depending on the child and the school and the amount of resources that we have. So I just wanted to begin by saying, I really sat down and thought about, because this has been really, things that we've been working on. And I just sat down and I started jotting down all the things that we've added resources to schools. And I know sometimes it feels like it's never quite enough, or maybe there is no right one answer, but we're working on things, and we have reached out to our elementary principals on several occasions trying to come up with solutions. Like I said, there's nothing that's perfect, but if you'll look at the front of the sheet that you have, now this was just me sitting down. Since I came in prior to this position, I came into personnel, and I will tell you the very first thing when I was in that position, I went into Dr. Mancho. So we need counselors in our elementary schools. I mean, you're talking just 4 years ago. We had counselors that were traveling across the county, and a school of 300 or 400 kids might have had a counselor that they had 2 days a week or 1 day a week, or they would leave in the middle of a crisis because they had to be at another school. And so he was receptive to that, but of course you're looking at personnel. So that was the very first thing that we looked at. We had to get counselors in our buildings, and we accomplished that. And it was adding positions. We had to add positions to make that happen. So that was the very first thing, I think, with elementary that was significant because we just had never had that before. And so the way I look at it is you've got to build that foundation in the school. You can add all you want from the outside in, but if you don't have a dedicated counselor and the support people that you need from the beginning, then, so that's was my approach. We're going to work on those things first. The larger elementary schools, we went back in, now we're looking at it and we've added halftime counselors. Be great to add more, but with every position, there's an FTE and there's a funding source. So I have to always have that in my mind. So, and then we were looking, okay, how can we add more mental health supports without really adding to the FTE or funding? And the first place we looked was title, because, you know, 7 of our, well, we have 5 non-title. Is it 5 or 4? 4 this year, non-title elementary schools. So we thought, so I sat down with Lola, I said, how can we get positions in these schools that would support mental health? You're able to use title funds, and we developed a social emotional support position. And we met with those schools, and some of those schools converted during personnel season. A title position that was geared toward academics is now working with children for behaviors. So that's how we've been able to get support in other schools. That really cost the county no additional money. We were using funds that were already there, and we added these positions through title, and it didn't add to the FTE. So that was one way to do it. And so then they've been fairly successful. So now we've got schools that are non-title, and we're looking at those. How can you get that position in those schools? And of course, it will cost us an FTE, and it will be funding in that sense. Then we looked at our special ed populations, because not that we have behaviors across the board, general population, special ed, so you can't really look at that, but we looked at special ed, and I will tell you, we've not cut special ed positions. We've tried to keep the class numbers low, because as an elementary principal, our special ed numbers would just balloon, and they would do the maximum. If you could have 30, you had 30. And so we didn't cut, I haven't cut special ed positions. In fact, I've tried to add to reduce those numbers in the special ed classrooms. So we've been doing that over the last 3 or 4 years during personnel season. I just don't really even look at those positions. In fact, we add in special ed, we don't cut. So that's something that's helped reduce some of the numbers. I'll tell you, we're probably the only county that has an LPN in every building. Now, they may be associated, and the way to do that was to make it an LPN aid, because we've got 24 buildings. That's 24 positions. That's 24 positions that we've added, but we felt coming out of COVID or right before COVID, we needed LPNs in our buildings, because some of these children that are seeing therapists or working with doctors have medication issues. Sometimes it's only a medication issue. You need somebody in that building that can follow up with that doctor, call the doctor, get prescription, you know what I mean, work with the doctors. We didn't have that before we had LPNs in our building. So that's a big piece of it too. So that solved a piece of it, like if you had something with that. So we now have LPNs everywhere. We added an additional RN. So we've got 9 RNs and 24 LPNs. And I will say, no, I don't know that any county has that, but so that's a support. It's not the answer, but it's a support. It's a piece of it. We also, when I was here and just looking at staffing, we had pre-K, and this was a concern of the previous board. Pre-K was a cut. We had half of the pre-K, if they were special needs or special ed, they went upstairs to one of the special ed coordinators, and he handled all of that. A big part of his job was doing pre-K. And then I had somebody down on this level doing pre-K for regular kids. So we put that all under one umbrella to get that off of our special ed coordinator, to free him up to go out and help support elementary schools in the job that he was supposed to be doing. So we had 2 special ed coordinators for elementary. One was doing mostly pre-K. He was going to pre-K conferences. He was doing probably 50% of his job was pre-K. So now that's all under Christy Horn right now. So if you have a pre-K question, it goes to Christy Horn. If it's a special ed pre-K, usually Susie will work with her on that. So that now has freed Mr. Marr up to be an elementary coordinator. Then we came back in, he says, I've got 13 elementary schools, I can't get anywhere. We looked at Angie Carvelli's job, she was half-time, we made her full-time last year. So we would have 2 people. We divided the elementary schools up, so one has 6, the other has 6. So that was just another support. We felt somebody from here could support the schools. We added a social worker. That's the one that Mr. Kirby was talking about. She's just half-time because she serves at the alternative school United for a half a day, but she does work a half a day with elementary attendance. So now we have 2 folks helping with elementary attendance that we didn't have before. We added a mental health coordinator here at the county level to go out and work with all the schools really and the counselors for that. We have Project Aware, which is fortunately we were able to get the grant, and it does, and this is all based on elementary. I didn't put, Project Aware is really at the middle school and the high school, but the only elementary school it serves is Victory. And Victory, if you look at tiered levels of mental health support, they really have all the tiers. They have a school counselor and they have a full-time therapist, like a tier 3 therapist. Other elementary schools, those kids have to go off-site to get a therapist or to go to a therapist. But we have that with Project Aware. She's full-time and she has a therapy dog that is there with her in that building. We've also added to the psychologists because that's a need. They're a big piece of mental health. They're a part of mental health. When you're looking at your school teams, we rely on our psychologists to give us ideas, help, with whatever curriculum, their background with mental health. So we've tried to shore up that department, which they're also hard to find. So we're fully staffed now with our psychologists. We have community care mental health therapists. Northview was a concern, and she had several referrals coming out of there. So that therapist is at Northview now 4 full days a week, and they go 1 day to United. So to give them that extra support. We also have, of course, we've had healthcare clinics in our buildings, which is also all part of mental health. If you're not feeling well and not well, and those healthcare clinics also help us with medications and contacting doctors. And community care has the mental health piece. They've really worked with us this year. We're meeting regularly to shore that piece up. So, we're keeping track of it, and they've been able to add therapists. So we've got that. Of course, we've got Game Changers. It's new for the substance abuse piece at Big Elm. And then we've been given the opportunity to possibly add communities and schools at Nutterfort, primary, intermediate, and Northern. Those schools were selected simply because they didn't have a lot of other support. So we're trying to shore up any holes that we have. All this, it would be great if we could just add positions everywhere, but when you've got a drop in enrollment every year and a drop of funding, we have to be careful on the number of positions that we add. So we try to do it creatively. We try to connect either to another position that we have. That's how we came up with second chance classrooms. They've been successful in elementary. I know there's some controversy about the middle and high, but sometimes in an elementary school, when you have a child that, for whatever reason, you don't know at any given time a child may get out something. Sometimes it's just isolating them, removing them, taking a walk, getting them into a spot where they can calm down. That's the purpose of a second chance classroom. So we saw success with those. So we wanted those in all the buildings. So principals would have that as an option. So they could take the child and whoever is there at the time, just maybe to calm them down. You can work with them on social skills during that time. There's so many things you can do in that second chance where they're in there generally with a small group. So those are the things that we've done so far. Is it enough? No. And is it going to solve every issue? It's not. I was in an elementary school for 20 years, and I can tell you, things have evolved, and children are coming to us less prepared for school. They have a lot of issues. It's not only house issues, but it can be a whole host of different reasons that a child may, at any moment, you know, they might be hungry. They might be upset about something. I don't know. And you can have a child in your building for 2 weeks and not know they're there. And then all of a sudden there's a day you know they're there. And so we need to have supports in place. But the thought is you need those supports in your elementary school. So when those things happen, you can deal with that in your school. So that's what we've done. This is what we are wanting to do. And we have brought in the elementary principals, and we've talked to them. I've got pages of things here where we have been asking them for what their mental health needs are for a while. Like, what, if you could have anything, what would you like to have? And so we're looking at that. And a lot of it was just, if I could just have a full-time counselor. You know, that's the only one we don't have full-time is Wall Street. She's got a half-time counselor that's there 5 days, but you've got to look at population. I mean, she's with 110 kids too, but. So our plan is to do feeder area programs, and we're just going to be elementary support programs. Because part of the issue, if you remove a child and you're trying to transition them back to their home school, you have to have people, first of all, to transition them back. They've been out of that environment for, it depends. They might be gone for 2 weeks, 9 weeks, maybe longer. Then you're taking them out of that. And I'm just dealing with children. When you take a child that's completely out of their environment, then you're going to move them. And maybe it's an environment that's familiar to them, but they hadn't been there for 9 weeks. It's just starting all over again. So from talking to elementary principals in our group, and that's what we do, is we want those kids to be part of a building. So we want to shore up and have an elementary support program in each feeder area. And we have those identified.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't use.
An elementary support program in each feeder area.
Okay.
So we've identified those buildings that are, Bridgeport is a concern. We're still working with those, and just space. It's a space concern. Yeah. So we'll figure that out. But starting in the spring, we're going to do our first pilot. Well, we'll have 2. Nutter Fort Intermediate will be the pilot, and then it'll be that Nutter Fort feeder area. The RCB feeder area is what that program will serve. And then we're going to go to Lumberport Elementary. Rebecca Hawk wanted to do that in her area, and she's got the space to do it. So we'll put staffing in for those. And the reason we're looking at feeder areas, if you look at, well, let me go ahead and tell you who the others are. We'll have Lumberport, Nutter Fort Intermediate, Northview, West Milford, and in Bridgeport's to be determined. And the reasons that we're looking at it by feeder area. It's problematic if you don't have busing, and Mr. Lopez can speak to that. These kids are already in that feeder area. The busing's already there. It's already set up to take the kids wherever they need to go. We don't have to worry about if the child gets placed in the elementary support program. You're not going to have to be concerned about how are they going to get there, because the buses are already set up and designed to take them where they need to go. Plus, they're going to stay in their feeder area. They're going to be where they're going to go to middle school, where they're going to go to high school. So that feeder area already has busing. You're not transitioning a child. My thoughts are, and after speaking with the elementary principals, and we had Hannah in, if that child goes, say to Nutter Fort, that's going to just be their school. We'd like to enroll them there. Of course, that's conversations with the parents, but you're talking probably 10 minutes away from their other school. That becomes their school. So when they have success in this program, and that's what our aim is to get them back into the population of schools so they can just handle school. They have success there. You can transition them back into their classroom. They'll just and they can go back and forth between the classroom or go into the more, restrictive supports depending on what the child needs. You can't do that if you're not in a school building. The goal is to get these children so they can manage and cope, and they eventually will move on to middle and high school. So that's our goal, was to teach them the skills to do that. So we'll have program in place at the feeder area schools, and we'll do the two starting in the spring. So we'll see what type of success we have. We hope it's not going to be 100% effective. I mean, nothing is, but at least we'll have the resources there for those children.
So when you, I'm sorry, when you say resources,
Oh,
when you say resources, what are those resources?
okay.
Who are those people? Who's that team?
Okay, we've talked about that. We would have to have a special ed teacher, a regular ed teacher, and an aide on site. They're going to have a space and a place to develop that. Our goal is to hire 2 behavior specialists. We hope they're out there. We're going to post for 2 BCBA behavior specialists that will work with this program, or will work with these 5 feeder programs once we get them all in place, and have a social worker available to go in and work with these kids and to help develop the skills that they need to stay in school.
And is this along with the counselor, the transition specialists?
Oh, yeah, we already
all of
have,
them
we
also-
already have all that.
Right, so is that, they're included in that team?
Absolutely. They'll be part of, and that team is already, all of our elementary schools now have a base team. We have a base team. Now we're going to go in and shore up for the elementary support programs, the schools that we're going to have these programs in. We'll add the staff there to shore up that, and then I hope we can get BCBAs. We would like to have 2 to go in and directly work with that. Now, countywide, we've talked, and there's some money, funding left from ESSER that was for PD that we haven't been able to spend all of that, and it has to be spent on PD. We want to do de-escalation strategies countywide. Every teacher will get this training for de-escalation. We already do some of that through CPI. There's a whole section, and we've started doing that now, going out to the schools and working with the schools on just de-escalation and what do you do when you have a child that gets out of control at this moment. So those techniques that you use, that's what they ask for. They want strategies to use in their classroom. So, I mean, that's our goal, is to get these 2 in place, and we'll work with them, this spring. And then next fall, we'll bring the other, so then every feeder area is, set with a program for children that need additional support. We're calling it extra support.
Mrs. Staley, so what's the criteria for a student to get into and then get out of?
I'm glad you asked that, because we sat down as a group. We talked about that. It can't be so cumbersome that a child can never get in. We don't want mounds of paperwork, but we do want documentation. So who knows the kids probably the best? The teacher, the school administrator that's probably had the child about every day or every other day at that point, and the counselor. So we are going to have the 2 school teams will meet, and they will make a determination and bring their information, and they will make that the schools will work together. It will be school level decisions. So if it was, say, Giovanna at Norwood and Hannah, they'll sit down and they'll talk about what that child needs and if they should go there. Instead of, before we had to do an FBA, we had to suspend them for how many days? By the time you got to where they could be placed, we were January, February.
Yeah.
So this could be immediate. If you've got a child that's consistently for 2 weeks, a pattern of the same consistent behavior, those 2, they're going to get together and we'll put that child there and we'll put some intensive work with him or her. And hopefully, if the parent would agree, we would like for them to just enroll there and be part of that school. They'll do field trips with that school. They'll eat lunch there. They'll be part of the school. And I've done this a lot. Kids have to belong somewhere. And when you pull them and place them in all different places, they lose that sense and then they don't have a loyalty or they have to know the adults. So we're hoping that if a parent would choose, say, if we had a Norwood child, we'd meet with that parent, and if they would agree, we would just enroll them at Nutter Fort. They would finish their elementary career there.
Does the parent have to agree for them to go into the program?
They did before. They always have to agree if you change any type of a placement with the child.
Well, what
They
I'm
did
saying
before.
is,
I would hope that they would.
it's like if they're going to transitional school, I mean, there's no.
Well, they have to agree for that. I mean, we have a meeting, they have to sign that the child can attend. Anytime you change placement, a parent is involved and they have to agree to that. But I think anytime you present that, if I was a parent and you said, we're going to be able to meet their needs with a behavior specialist, we'll have a social worker there that can work with the family. I can't imagine, you may have one, most of them would want that. At the elementary level, I don't know. Yeah,
If they're having that problem with school, they're probably having the same problem at home. And this parent has to look at it and say, hey, what they're doing there is going to help that child when he comes home.
right.
So.
That would be great if that happened. Yeah.
Now, the other thing, the thing I really wanted to, and we've thought about this and really looked at it. There are options for children that, do something severe. We put them out of school. You do an out of school suspension for a child that hits a teacher or whatever, another child. There's that option. But what happens at the end of a 10-day suspension? They return to school.
Worse.
What happens when you send them to a 45-day placement? What happens at the end of that placement? They come back to school.
If they don't have that support, they'll revert right back to what they do.
But that's what anything that we do, even if you have an IEP meeting with a child and you do an out of school environment placement and you train or work with them at home, what happens eventually? They come back to school. They always come back to school. There is no big place that you take children and they always come back to your school. So we have to be prepared for these kids. The needs are huge. But even within the elementary support program, and if it happens to be at Simpson or wherever this program is, she's still going to have the option to do an out of school suspension if that child gets out of control. But ultimately, that child's going to come back to her. And then we're going to have to work with them and come up with, the goal is to get these children to function and to cope and to be able to be in school.
So is there a way to incorporate the school assistance team, a SAC team, the meeting where how the letters go home to the parents and you invite them to a SAF meeting and you sit down and
Well, that would
the
be
same
the
process?
That would be the beauty of if they left, say they left Norwood and went to Hannah, she's going to have that child in her building. That will be her student. So you could have a SAT team. You could have all the same processes that you would have anywhere.
I was just thinking as the SAT team met before the transfer to discuss that with the
I would
student
say that they
parents.
probably met several times
Before then, okay.
Yeah, I would hope.
But just don't drag it out like that.
Yeah, that's what really the biggest concern was, is it was just taking so long. And we don't want to put kids out of school. It just breaks your heart. Sometimes you have to. But honestly, when you have kids out of school for a long period of time and they're not with their peers and they come back usually with more behaviors. And a lot of times when we send children to placement, I've had them be gone for 45 days, residential placement. They come back probably with more concerns than they did when they left.
And most parents are going to agree to this because they don't know what the next step would be. You're offering that we're going to do this, and they know if they choose not to do this, they don't know what the next step is.
Well, you know what, if they would choose not to take advantage of this, then you're going to get into a situation where you're suspending and you're suspending and you're suspending. I mean, that's what it would be. They would just be out of school. And we still have those options available. These elementary support programs will still have those options available. They'll still have the option to do a placement or an at-risk assessment and send them for an evaluation. We still have all those tools in our toolbox. We have a lot of things, but there's not a perfect answer for this. When you have a child, and you never know, and with any child at any level, when they may have an issue. It could be, they can be in your building for 2 weeks, you don't know they're there, and then all of a sudden, they're having a meltdown over something, or they've had a crisis in their home that you don't know about, and a lot of times that's what creates the issues. And then also, with it being in a feeder area like this, the piece for special education is already there. We've already got the programs in place, so you can, have your IEP meeting, and if a child already has a diagnosis or they are already, whatever their disability is, well, we've got all those services already in place to deal with those children. And they definitely don't transition well. I mean, if you've got children, it depends on what the diagnosis is. We're just trying to limit the amount of transitions for elementary kids and still have them be successful in the environment that they're in and be with their peers. At some point in their world, they have to be able to see peers. They have to be able to go to lunch or go out on a playground. Even if you play over here, you can at least see peers playing. They have to have examples of what needs to, what their behavior should be.
And speaking of peers, what about something happening, and how are we dealing with the peers, the repercussions from the event for the peers?
Because and this was something, and I did tell Mr. Scott, I appreciated that, because this is something that we've had in place, well, apparently since 2008. We have an after-crisis tragedy plan, and it is really step-by-step on, you remember this, Ms.?
Mm-hmm.
We used to have to keep it pinned up, but it just needs updated. This is more about suicide, death of a classmate, death of a parent. It's more around that. So we're updating this. Counselors have already met. They're meeting a second time. We will update this framework to talk about what steps do you take if you have a child that loses control in the classroom. And I will tell you, when you have a child in a classroom of 20 kids, the main goal is safety. You need to remove them. And we have CPI teams trained in all of our buildings. If you look, I think I've added that on there. We have code blue teams if there's a medical emergency. We have teams trained in our buildings for these kids to get them safely to another area away from everybody else. We've had that in place for years here. Sometimes it's us for the team, but that's your goal, is to remove them so they're not traumatizing the other children in that classroom. But to stand here and say that you're 100% going to prevent every child from never seeing anything, I can't say that. Anybody that's ever been, you can't say that. It's our goal to react, and our job to get those children removed so the other children aren't seeing that, and take them to a safe place in that school.
And then what do we do after that?
Well,
After the drama or them being
that's
part
well,
of that
if it's-
disruption or seeing that disruption, how do we have, is that in that? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Well, generally, if there's an incident like that, your counselor, that's why it's so important to have a counselor in every building. Your counselor's going to go into that classroom. I would hope as a whole group and work with the classroom, and then any children there's children react to things all very differently. Some children would look at that and go, huh, and not even, and others internalize it, and it scares them because they don't know. They've never seen it. They've never been around it. Other children have a completely different reaction. So if you had 4 or 5 children, or 3 or 4 that it really affected, then that's when you would look at that tier 3 help for them. It would be
I hope from
possibly,
the school level would be all hands on deck when that occurred. The principal would be there with those
right.
folks directing.
But those children would take, that's when you would, after you did a whole group with, if a counselor went into that classroom, he was seeing 3 or 4 others struggling. That's when you would make individual appointments and bring those kids in, reach out to the parent and say, look, I think they're, I mean, I've watched it happen in my school. I know, I mean, that's the way we would deal with it. And that's the way it's going to be laid out in here. It just needs to be in steps because every child is different. You could have one incident happen in a classroom of 25. 20 of those kids get up and grab their book bags and leave at the end of the day and you never know. And then you have 3 or 4 that internalize it. It scares them. And like I said, that's why you need to remove that threat as quickly as you can. That's why we have trained teams to do that.
So now say if this incident occurs at Norwood and the class, there's several students at Norwood who are traumatized by the event after the student has gone to Nutter Fort. Okay, what services can this team provide Norwood? Can they assist Norwood also? Or they just
Well,
specifically
you would have your school psychologist assigned to Norwood. You'd have your school counselor assigned to Norwood. We would have our mental health coordinator that could possibly go out and with a counseling
and
background.
it would be the administrator who would take the lead on it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The administrator has to reach out. And this whole guide is really based on, and really from the beginning, the administrator would call in and say, look, this is more than I can handle here. I need some more support. We've done that for years. If something you did, I think it was WI, I can't remember, we had a suicide or something with a parent. And I mean, we send the team in. We've always done that. So, but that's initiated usually from the administrator, the school administrator. I'd say, look, I need help. Send me some help.
Once this is revised and everything will, then that actually like do some sort of in-service with our principals, especially our new ones. I mean, I know
Oh,
Jill
for
knows
sure.
what to do, but at the same time, we've got newbies out there who
Right.
who are not, that don't have the experience or probably don't know exactly really what to do. Sometimes they think it's easier not to say anything because they don't want to get in trouble. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So,
For sure. I think the biggest message is you have to let us know and ask for help because we will provide the help. You know, and you have to not be afraid to ask. It's not that you're not doing a great job. She'll ask for help, even she knows what she's doing. I mean, we've got folks that'll ask for help. You know, Hannah's all, and I will say we brought in the group that we were looking at working with to do these elementary support programs and that they really are on board. They are.
And the
It's not
central
like-
office is not sitting up here with big screens looking at what's happening in every school. We don't know unless the principal lets us know.
And we'll
not-
address
we're
that,
aware.
just to remind them to please let me know when there's something going on serious in your building. I need to know, really, so you guys can know, because you hear something on a scanner, or, you know, 911 gets a call, it goes out
Well,
everywhere.
I mean, just think about really this week, how many times we've received
Just any
notification
kind of a
codes in
code.
our school.
You know, we have so many good things in place, we really do, and things get the limelight, and they should, but we have a lot of good things. So when I just sat down and started reflecting on all the things that we have added, not going to be 100% the answers, but that's the direction we want to go. We want to make it a feeder area. We wanted the principals to be bought into it because they're ultimately, you know, Hannah ultimately is going to be the one that's going to be working with us ultimately and working to build that program. They're going to be like our model programs. Rebecca Hawk was almost too excited. You know, she really was. She said, oh, she was really excited because we want kids to be successful in school, but you also want people to feel safe while they're there, and you want the other children to feel safe.
So you're going to do Nutter Fort first and then?
No,
or
we'll
you're gonna
do
both at the same time?
both at the same time,
Okay.
starting January. We're going to have this in place.
Okay.
And we're going to post at the next meeting on the 20th. We'll have job descriptions for BCBA's, and we're going to post those after this job, or after the 20th meeting. And then a social worker will be on there.
Okay, so we have them in. So now what's the criteria for that individual to exit, if they're gonna go back to their home school, or if they're enrolled there, are they, once they exit the program, can they still stay at that school since they're?
Oh, absolutely. That's
So-
where we think, say it's a fourth grader and Hannah says, wow, they've come over here and we've worked with them for a semester and they're doing a great job. They'll just go, if the parent, and I would think as a parents may want to stay there, if it's the feeder area and they're going to go to the same middle school, the same high school. I don't think you could make this work if you were going to take them to a different middle school and high school. But if they stay in that feeder area, then they would just go into the fourth grade. They would just be a fourth
And the good
grader.
thing, they're in that building, so
They're in
before,
that
when we were driving them to the other side of the county and warehousing them, it was a little bit more problematic, because when they did well enough that we sent them back to their school, it may not last, then it's a bigger process to get them
If
back there.
there's one thing that upsets a young child, there's one thing that probably will upset a child any more than anything else. Where do you have the most behaviors? When you're transitioning a child, I don't care if it's from the classroom to the bathroom, from the bathroom to the cafeteria, it's that transition. How do we expect a 6 or 7-year-old to transition to a school across the county? Then at some point, they're doing better there to try to get them work back into an elementary school that they've been out of maybe for 9 weeks. They walk in and it would just be like everything brand new again.
Now they're getting on a bus with probably their sibling still.
They're just gonna stay. So our goal is that they just, a lot of behaviors, they have to belong somewhere. Kids need to feel like they belong somewhere. They have to have a person that they can rely on. And without a lot of the transitions, I think I'm not gonna say it's gonna be 100%, because she's still, I would say Hannah's still probably gonna have to probably suspend a child if they get out of control, just like you would anywhere. We still have those tools available. But like I said, ultimately, they come back to your schools. We're a public school setting. I could do an expulsion and put a child out for a year, but where do they come after that year?
I'm just happy that we have
That's
friends
what I'm saying, though. If they're a fourth grader and I put them out for a year,
come back.
they're gonna come back to my school the next
But
year.
I'm just happy that it appears we have principals who have not looked at this as, what are you doing to me? But they're
Well, I think some of
stepping
it's
forward
space.
and saying, we'll take these kids,
Yeah. Well, I think that some of it's space too.
And, yeah,
Space
space
is
is our
available.
biggest issue at Bridgeport.
And it's a perfect time because we're going into personnel season. So we'll be able to look at our numbers and adjust where we're gonna have these programs. You know, if we've added a lot of staffing in a building, we're gonna have all these kids with Hannah, maybe she needs the extra people. Not that we're gonna be pulling a lot of people, but.
Now, we were talking mainly about elementary. Are these particular teams available for the middle school and the high school if need be?
I would say after we get this semester, and they'll work mainly with elementary. And then I would hope that as this just becomes part of our school system, that we'd like to have 3 behavior specialists. We're going to put them out there. You never know, we may get them. I've looked at several job descriptions for BCBS and they can be a lot of different things. So, and I am excited about one of the things that may help with Hannah's location is we were invited to be a community in schools county. But then again, it's limited. They've given me 3 schools to do that in. So we were thinking Norwood because she is shorthanded over there. I was in that building. I mean, she operates on few,
So administrative, who
Yeah.
will be the individual that will be monitoring these programs from, say, the county office level? And I mean, I
Well,
know
so
at
it's
the,
elementary, it will be Julie and Susie with special ed students. I mean, and then will be the people overseeing that. Of course, I'll be involved because I just we got some elementary people up here, don't we? For sure. Mary Frances, they got elementary people. Even Jimmy's elementary side is coming out now. He's been involved with he was kind of initially involved in the very beginning of the program we had before in the busing. Those kids were getting there, at 10 and leaving at 5. So there, even the whole routine was a little different, and that was a concern really that he had from the beginning, was just busing these kids. If a child needs support, how are you going to get them there? Parents can't always get them. They can't always take them across town or get them where they need to go. So, and I have exhausted a lot of conversations with other superintendents. Cabell County, this is the model that he's got a large county, and he said that he was not in favor of really moving kids to one location because of special ed, and there were so many different reasons that you couldn't move a child, and just, so he's looking at it this way. So that's why in a large county, you have to consider the logistics of it and the proximity, and probably the most logical way is feeder area.
So on our magical Christmas wish list, we, when we have our BCBA's, are there any other positions you're looking at helping or assisting or to help with this K through 12? I mean, what else do we need?
I think we have a high need for social workers because it's that whole family piece. Connecting the school with the families and dealing with all those kind of needs that kids have that you just don't have time in the school to consistently reach out and follow up, because you're, and a school counselor, if you've only got one school counselor, they're dealing with the kids in the building. They're doing that group counseling.
Are we looking at high school registrars? Positions for those counselors? I'm just asking.
I mean, it could be there, I guess.
To free them up,
Yeah,
to actually do counseling work instead of transcripts and student intakes and 504 paperwork and stuff like that. More of a registrar type deal as opposed, so they can actually do counseling.
And that's what most register, most of it is paper.
Yeah.
Work, it's different. I mean, is their ability
Well,
to have that as a service position, rather
Yes.
than a professional?
well, yeah, the halftime secretary.
And then that frees them up. You're 100% right. I mean,
That is something, I mean, we've thought about, but my brain was all about just the elementary supports, because I thought that's,
if
for
we
today.
did a service
Moving
position
forward.
and then freed up that guidance, or the old guidance counselor.
Now, we added a halftime counselor at Bridgeport High because honestly, sometimes you just look at numbers, just sheer volume. Bridgeport Middle was one, I mean, 600 kids were looking at enrollment because of other things. Then that's really what brought the enrollment, fresh in my mind, because I'm looking at this enrollment numbers, and Bridgeport Middle was over 600 kids. They had one counselor. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of issues you have or whatever mental health needs are. That's a lot of kids for one person. So we added a halftime there, and then the support was at Bridgeport High because they're over 800. So I think once you get foundational things in place, then you can go back in and start looking, okay, I think we may need something here. Just like the secretaries at Johnson. My goodness, with the amount of kids and parents and the way that new building is set up, they had one secretary, 1.5 people. So we've now put 2 full-time people. But it all costs, I mean, we have to really, I'm waiting because we're a month behind on our enrollment. Well, we've got the enrollment numbers, but our state aid has not come out yet. So I don't know our overages right now. So that's why we're going to start with these 2 programs and hire what we have now and then reevaluate. We'll have to look probably across the county personnel wise to make the pieces all fit. We're a month behind because the collection was a month behind. So we won't get these numbers. I'm hoping like in the middle of this month. Generally, we have them by now. We have our overages and what state aid formula we're getting, and we have a good idea, but we just don't have it yet. That's gonna make personnel season a little interesting. So we just are getting all this stuff. Well, so far it's a month and a half late to plan, so. And we can reevaluate, we'll put these two programs in place and see where we go when we hire the staffing and reevaluate where we are. And we're definitely, I think they're meeting this week on this again, the counselors working to revise this. And that was something, you know, we knew we had it, but it needed to be fixed, updated, 2008. Things have changed a lot.
Can we get a copy of that? Can I have a copy of that at some point?
You can have this one. Yeah, it's an old one. I think you have more of them somewhere. That's the one you gave me, so.
Mhm.
I knew we had one, because I said, where's that little blue book we used to? Do you remember that? Told us to keep it in view, and
Wendy. Wendy.
so, yeah, Wendy put that together.
All right.
So do you have any other, like, suggestions or ideas? I mean, that's the direction we're heading for right now. And I'm all about high school, if we can work on that.
Well, like you said, you've been in the elementary. I worked real close with the
Yeah, so you
counselors
watched it.
and I watched them.
The
And
amount of paper, everything is just, we're drowning in paperwork. We really are, just like Jim Kirby. The amount of paperwork that it takes for him to get, and that's a whole big piece of this too, across the board, is, you know, student attendance.
Well, there's a percentage that the counselors at any level is supposed to work with students.
What is that, 80%, I think?
It used to be 75, I don't know.
We actually got a new counseling model from the state, and it's a lot more prescriptive, and they really should be working with children.
But even working with children, they still have documentation.
well, I mean, I know,
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but keeping logs and.
But
So
not
you're
the-
working 75-80%
I
of
mean,
the time.
yeah.
You've got to finish all your documentation and the other 20%, and it's tough.
I mean, I know they do stuff like gather up homework and I'm like, why are the counselors gathering up homework? And
Probably
just-
because it's in somebody's 504 that they have support at the end of the day, maybe, and that's the body that they have to help get it, you know? I agree, but sometimes it's probably whoever the administrator can get at that time, whatever the child at the end of the day is or whatever. I wish we could just add, we could, I guess.
Ask for forgiveness later.
If we just had a, big pile of money. It's
We
the
used
state really, and it is a conversation. We were down Friday. Well, we're looking at student achievement heavy now, which we should be for sure, but it's just the funding for mental health support. They need the things aren't getting, like we'll say, they're just not getting any easier, and it's taking more and more people to take care of our children.
And they need a better formulas to where it doesn't create overages. I mean, that should be, mental health should be pulled out separate, where you don't have, when we add mental health, it's an overage on our school aid formula, it's going to show us a formula, but we're just putting in what needs to be done. They need a different calculation.
And I think everybody agrees with that, and I don't know, that's a big thing that we can't really fix, but it just costs us a lot every year, but that's okay. And I think our transitional middle and high school is working well, and Ashley's going to come in and present on her programs. I want you to hear,
Mhm.
because I don't think we just have a grasp on everything that's happening there, like how they can transition through their programs. But now their evolution, middle and high, those kids don't stay there. Their maximum is 45 days and they go back to their home school. It's our United Highs where they stay and can graduate from, but it is a United High School. It's got its own number. It's its own Weavis entity for the evolution middle and high schools.
I think it's tough.
They go back. Kids go there for up to 45 days and they transition back.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, if you think of anything, you let me know.
And with that, I do recognize that this was a 5 o'clock meeting, and it was noticed for 5 o'clock, but it is a different time. And I noticed Mr. Scott is there. Is there anyone who didn't sign up to speak that wishes to speak? We would give them 5 minutes. And I understand, like I said, it was noticed properly, but I do understand it's 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Even some of us.
It always is.
I did.
So with that, we'll let you speak.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this. I sent you all an email week before last. I'd like to read it into the record and to make a few comments. So let me begin by saying that after talking to people I trust, I reviewed my correspondence in these matters before us and came to the realization that my zealousness and passion became focused on personalities and had lost the true issue, which was helping the children who experienced a horrific event in the fourth grade class at Victory Grade School, both the perpetrator and the victims. I hope you all will understand my passion and vehemence. This was my daughter. She was the victim of a violent crime. And as her father, I would do anything humanly possible to prevent it from happening again. And I will do whatever is necessary to help her recover from this trauma. To date, Lucy has missed 9 days of school. On 6 other days, I've had to carry her into school. I tell you this only as an explanation for my intensity and my relentlessness. I'm sure as parents, you would feel the same way. I would like to personally thank Mrs. Stutler, Mr. Hamrick, and other people that have responded to this particular email. Now, that being said, I would like to start over with Ms. Stutler, her staff, and the board. I would like to work together to address the issues and shortcomings that this unfortunate circumstance has revealed. I believe there's a lot of work to do and that we can deal better with these situations and their aftermaths if we work together. I came late and listened to part of your plan. I think there are many good things there. But I do think that there's more that we can work on and we can work on together. I would ask that a committee be created made up of the superintendent or her designate, mental health professionals, school administrators, teachers, and parents to further flesh out how to deal with these issues. I believe that that will serve not only my child, but all the children of the county better. This was not an isolated incident. As we've noted in many of my emails to you all, many people have said, well, what school was this? Or, it happens in my school. Only by working together can we address all of the overall concerns. I'm willing to help. If you want me on a committee, great. If you don't want me on a committee, great. I just want this moving forward. There are structural issues that I think, are identified, can be addressed. I think there are things that we're seeing as parents that if we sit down as a group, talk, you guys will see. Because a lot of people have called me over this stuff. They've seen me come to the meetings, they've heard me speak, they saw my passion, and I've been approached by a lot of people with different incidents in different schools. They don't know what to do. And so hopefully we can put something together as an advisory committee, board, whatever, and work together to keep this moving forward in this positive direction so that we can achieve what's best for all our kids. So I thank you all. I look forward to working with you. I would really appreciate if I could get a copy of that plan, if you want to email me so I can see it. Because there are people out there that want to see this stuff. And I just hope we have the opportunity to move forward from this and really protect and take care of our children, both perpetrators and victims. So thank you all very much.
Thanks. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? All right, with that, we'll move down to superintendent's update. Ms. Stutler?
Sure. I just wanted to update you on, the state. I kind of briefly responded to it or said something about it. We had a state superintendent's meeting on Friday. And I will say there's a hard push, and we're looking at our achievement statewide and of course countywide. And we've had a chance to look at our scores, and of course we're looking at reading and math and writing. And the state's going to go, I think, a direction that is kind of back to what we saw years ago with reading and math and basic, phonics, and really an approach at early intervention with phonics and looking at reading, looking at writing, and doing a statewide push on training for Orton-Gillingham type strategies for classrooms. And I think it's in a good direction. So that's the elementary I need to get there. So, and looking at, we kind of pulled away from explicit like vocabulary instruction and all those things that we used to have in elementary school. And we're seeing that after 10, 12 years, 14 years, that it's taken us not in the direction that we needed to go. So I was glad to hear that. We'll see how the state kind of rolls that out and wants us as a county to follow suit. So we're already doing some of that, some of the strategies. And I think as we get more into that and train, I think that's going to be the direction we need to go. to improve. We're doing currently math fluency fact kits that we've had in place now for 1.5 2 years. And we're really hitting those and training on that just to get that automaticity in math. I think that's gonna make a huge difference. Kids know their facts early on, and that way when they go to middle school and high school, they're not relying on 15 things to figure it out what the fact fluency is or the facts are. So I don't know. It was just a promising meeting. We had that on Friday. Also, I'm trying to think, facilities, we've got a lot going on with facilities. I think Jimmy can update us on that.
So the bid for the RISA building closed last night at 7, and the overall bid went for $74,250. But we ended up, after the buyer's premium, $67,500. What was actually did for that. The Lost Creek building, and of course you all heard there was a small fire that set off the alarm if the heater didn't do anything to the building. But the bidding closes for it tomorrow, and it's already was selling it and the parking lot across the street. I think it's the school right now is at 26,000. The parking lot is at 16,000 the bid. But and I was a little panicked over the RISA building yesterday because the highest bid was 11,000. And I called Andrew Yoder and I said, hey, you know, we're worried about this. And he said, it's going to be fine. I'm showing the building right now. So he seems to think that the Lost Creek building will go for him.
Are those absolute, is it an absolute auction?
No. No,
Well, that,
there's a, what do you mean? Well, no, we didn't put a bottom dollar.
Oh, you have.
No, with me.
yeah, it's gonna sell regardless if it went for 11,000.
It's what, right. Well, and that was my concern. So then I had to come to the board meeting today.
Yeah.
So that's a concern over there. However, after talking to a lot of people, and especially with confidence, they strongly recommended if we're serious about selling this, it will actually let the buyers know that we are serious and it will go for a higher price. So.
It proved to be true. On the
Oh, well, this time it did. See.
When does the Lost Creek?
But the Lost Creek, or I
When
mean,
does
the
that
RISA
auction
building
end?
was a little different because we kind of.
Said tomorrow night.
Bought it back.
Well, that's kind of my question too, is just to let because we have 2 new board members, and I'm sure they know because they're involved, but we sold RISA several years, not too long.
Yeah.
We sold RISA, what was the
$36,000.
$36,000. Then when we got into Victory construction, it was taking longer than we thought. So our alternative was to bring, or we had a couple of options, and the one main option was to bring the modulars in. And they make very nice modulars now, but that was going to cost us over $100,000, $185,000 just for the year to do that.
Yeah.
So at that point, we purchased back the RISA building for how much? It was around 30.
Yeah, somewhere in that.
Now we sold
I
it.
can't remember exactly.
So now we sold it for 60. So I think we ought to buy it back and then resell it again.
Double it.
They want more for it this time.
Yeah. But like I said, the Lost Creek building will go to 7 tomorrow. As far as the Adamson building, you know, again, I've only met with the executive director of Central West Virginia Community Action once. She's canceled several different appointments for various reasons. So she's waiting on an architect from Thrasher's most recently to look at the building. So I'll keep you posted on
And I
that.
spoke to just happened in passing, was speaking to a board member, and they are interested.
Great. We did have the Simpson mandatory bid meeting today. I think we had about 15 in attendance for that. So that it's a good sign for all the projects that we're going to be doing. With the engineer and also Danny, just very pleased with that turnout. And we also made them aware that we're going to have several other projects going on. And so that will make the bidding much more competitive. So we do have some dates The bid opening for the project at Simpson will be 1 o'clock here on the 20th of December. And then, of course, at that point, we'll give them a notice to proceed. And then anticipated start time, most likely is going to be sometime in the spring. So, and then we did meet today with John Jeffers. He's a construction manager that's going to oversee all these projects that we're doing, that works for McKinley. And also Kurt Shear, he's the senior mechanical engineer for them with McKinley. And we talked about the other projects and how we were going to look to roll those out. Starting in March, probably every 2 weeks, we're going to let those out. And you don't want to do too many at one time because everybody's bidding on the same things. And they have to prepare for cost estimates. So you don't want your cost estimator just throwing stuff together for these bids. So systematically, we're going to let those out every 2 weeks and hope to get a lot of the work done in the summertime.
McKinley's also sending updates to us on where they're at
Yes.
with the projects.
And that's the
which
thing,
we
you
had
bid
not
them all at once.
requested to give us an update.
A contractor,
They
he has
can't,
to go bid on them because if they'd be afraid they got them and wouldn't have the money.
Right.
He's sending me just a little snapshot, so I'll start sending that to you.
I'll ask again, can I have a list of projects that we're working on, that we're going to be putting out for bid?
This roof, because that seems like a ways away for this roof job in the spring. I mean, the spring.
well, by the time they get the equipment ordered,
You can't really rip it off in the winter.
yeah.
If they knew they had it
I
bad.
have that.
Well, it's
Should be
leaking in the
too
winter.
very.
It's already leaking in the winter.
Yeah.
We were there today and the room is not leaking today. I spoke with the teacher, spoke with the teacher across the hallway. And we told them that we're trying to get that repaired. They're very, I even looked at the ceiling tile. Now I know there have been leaks, but a lot of those have been patched. We think we can keep those patched until we can get this work. Because a lot of it is, if we jump into this too quickly, we're looking at 49 a square to get that put on. Or I'm sorry, square foot. You're talking, if we do this and let it out and get a bid, the going rate's about $25. So we can't panic on this. We want to keep everybody safe. So we have our roofer welders that are constantly going up there if there are leaks and trying to make those repairs. But we're working as quickly as we can with the architect. We'd like to get this completed already. Jill knows that, I know that, Lord knows it, but, there's a system in place and it doesn't work very fast when it comes to architectural and engineering, and also ordering that equipment. Other than that, I think that's it.
On your list of projects, are the secure interests on that list?
Which one?
No.
Well, another report we should have already, they finished that one. What's next on our, is that on your list? Is
We're
that
talking
coming?
with Jason Snyder on that.
I'm sorry.
We're talking with Jason Snyder on that, and making those plans. We're looking to shore up the South Harrison area first. Because we need to do the middle school, which we think that will be a fairly easy one. There's kind of a plan that Ken Winky was working on prior to, and Justin has already looked at that for the high school. And then I think the idea then is going to Bridgeport. That's the plan.
And then we're done.
And Mr. Devano, I'm not trying to avoid.
I don't think you
No,
are.
we'll send it to
I don't think you are.
But I will get that.
I just don't want anybody to forget.
No, and they have that and they've been working on it. But there's 3 major roof projects, and that's Robert C. Byrd, Bridgeport Middle School and Liberty High School. And then we have, all the high schools that we're going to be putting in air conditioning. And a couple of middle schools, because Bridgeport Middle doesn't even have air conditioning in there, so. And then just various rooftop units that we're going to be replacing throughout the counties, but I will get you that list.
Okay, thank you.
Wait a minute. There you go.
He said it was good.
Make everybody else.
I think
Yeah, we have to have copies.
Sure.
the projects came in, we did have to reduce according to the amount of money that we had. Then they wanted to go and review to see if there were items that they could still use, like without having to replace it, so we could make our money go further. So I think that's what they were doing, evaluations on some of the rooftop units.
It's a good problem that we have with the ESSER money that we did get. When we first put all these projects together, we put a wish list and it was very broad.
And it was about everything out of the city, I
It
think.
was, yeah, but if we get this amount of work completed on those projects, other than a couple of our facilities are not in good shape, we talked about that. Facilities, we're gonna be in pretty good shape because we're going to have to spend that money. We're gonna have to find the money to spend to update roofs and our HVAC equipment anyway. So we kind of stretched it pretty broad. That back when Joe was here. And there's some of those things that we're just not going to quite be able to get to, but they're not a pressing issue. It's not a safety issue. Things are operating.
And I will say the elephant in the room, when they're engineering these, they're also looking toward, we don't want to jump on them very quick on certain schools if our plan is to ultimately have to consolidate. So we need to make sure that those projects that are done in a way to where we're not hamstrung. We spend a bunch of money on a roof and an HVAC, and we have to add maybe an addition onto a school, and then that doesn't handle it. So they're cognizant of that. That's not something that we've decided yet, I sat in on the meeting, and I was happy that our architect was at least cognizant of that fact, that he's not going to design something unless, it's something that's expandable. There are some buildings, if we do that, we would have to add some additional space possibly in areas, and you don't want to put a roof and put HVAC onto a facility, and then it's not compatible when you have to do that. So that's the elephant in the room.
And that is something, I actually have that as a point that we would like to sometime in January meet to discuss. I've looked at enrollment numbers, our enrollment, I think I sent that to you, the trends. So you could go ahead and kind of digest what our numbers are. And I would like to possibly sometime in January, go ahead and give you a look at what I'm looking at and what we had a conversation with the architects about. So, but amenable to something.
How much money do we have left with these ESSER funds?
24 million, 24, a little over 24 million. And then we had about 38 million worth of work.
Yeah.
When it all.
And rising.
And yeah, when we looked at all the projects, like you said, it was pie in the sky wish list. And so we just have worked our way down to the most critical top needs down. I met with all of my supervisors. That was one of my goals. I wanted to update you. To meet with I've met with all of them and we've set goals. I didn't know whether you guys wanted to see those. I think it was part of my goal to share that, but I do have those. I've met with each one of them and worked their goals around what you asked for me this year. So that's complete. I'll review that with them probably in January, February. Evaluate at the end of the year. So that is done. And Mr. Hogue has a UTC update.
Yeah, we had it was rather a short meeting the other day at the Career Center, but it was, very beneficial. One, they've gone in and they have re-blacktopped at the end where all the water would gather at the end of the building. And they was able to get that all taken care of. And they did a very, very good job. Talked about other things that they're going to do in the spring or in the summer. They're going to go in and take out some of the floor tiles that, definitely contain, I guess, asbestos, and they're going to get that all replaced. Enrollment continues to go up hold steady or go up a little bit. They did lose a couple adults out of their nursing program, but other than that, it's holding pretty good. Also,
435, it's like 435.
yeah,
Yeah.
435, which is,
Lincoln with the lead. They
I
had.
was just getting ready to say, Lincoln High School sends the most students to the Career Center. And I think it was like 90-some kids from Lincoln High School take advantage of the Career Center. And so that was a positive thing. But probably the most positive thing that came out of it was that their LPNs program, all their people that was finishing up took their test and the boards, and they scored 100%. They all passed, and they are already now out there in the job market. Received, have
He
received
had
jobs
26 in the one class and they all had jobs well before they graduated.
well before they graduated. So, but they all passed their tests. So I thought that was very, very good. So down there at the Career Center, I seem to think things are really on the rise, and the more it gets out, the positive things, I think it will maybe in the future will increase the number of students and all that's willing to take advantage of what they can get down there. So anyway, that is pretty much, all that I have for you.
That's all I have for superintendent's update.
And we do, our next meeting, the 20th.
Yes.
You need a public hearing for the county, correct, prior to the meeting?
And that's been published for 5:30, yes.
5:30, okay, so it's 5:30 and then we'll have a meeting. He had to publish it.
Okay, but can we have our regular meeting prior to and then have his?
So yours is at 5:30?
Right.
Yeah, so we could do our regular meeting at 4.
4, and then do his.
If you guys can, yeah.
And this was
I can double check things tomorrow.
I just, and I don't know if everyone else needs to move. I know Mr. Hope needed to move.
I asked if we could move that meeting to another day, but we figured out that if we went ahead and had it at 4 o'clock, started at 4 that day, we could get our regular meeting plus his calendar.
We shouldn't have a large agenda, correct?
I don't think so. We have, I know Dr. Nelson has a meeting. That is, it's a short.
He doesn't.
Okay. I mean, can we do, and I hate to do something at 4 o'clock. I think that's really too early because, for the public, because a lot of people haven't quit. So, I mean, the earliest I like to do is at 4:30.
Okay, 4:30.
I mean,
Half a loaf of bread's better than no bread at all.
I think if we do it at 4:30, we shouldn't have that much if it's just Meadowbrook Children's Charity on
I'm
there.
gonna check
Yeah.
again to see if he can get away.
My ad,
Oh.
ran, I just checked
Yeah, mine.
correspondence here.
Okay.
It's been set up to run. I mean, so much need, and obviously like.
It's set up, Corinne, could you do it at, for the public hearing at 4:30 and then we'll start the meeting at 4:45?
I'll hop on that tomorrow morning.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
All right, so
so 4:30
4:30 calendar.
for the calendar, public hearing. And then 4:45 for the regular meeting, the better.
What was it?
4:30 calendar hearing,
Oh, calendar.
4:45 regular meeting. Good?
Yep.
All right, moves us down to approval of consent items. Is there a motion? Is
Moved.
there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. Probably down on, page, I guess, 25. W.D. Drake or W.R. Drake Company, primary, secondary hot water system for the BOE. Is that for this building?
It was boilers, correct?
Yeah.
Boiler replacement.
Did we replace them?
Anything else? And nothing further. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Out-of-state travel study request. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Returning bus driver promissory note. This is different than our regular promissory note.
Correct. Did you want me to explain?
Or you can explain.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, if we pay the 1,500, I guess call it stipend, it's a promissory note for those that, first go through all the training, and it's pretty timely. So if we have a bus driver maybe that moves from another county and they've been out, I guess for a few years, before the state would not allow us to just work on a recertifying them. They had to go through the entire program again, training. So the state since, and I had asked them about this several times, if we have somebody that's been a bus driver, it's been more than 2 years, technically you had to go through the entire training. So now they went and they've gotten waived through the State Board of Education to be able to do a modified training. And that decision, what they need is based on the transportation director, trainers, and also the state transportation director. So it may be 10 hours, maybe 20 hours, maybe.
And they may have their CDL and.
Yeah. And now these are people that already had their bus endorsement.
Right.
And they just need to get recertified. So based on that, we want to be able to pay them a portion of the retraining to get them to come back and, be employed by Harrison County. So we didn't have anything in place. I've talked to Tammy about that, and she looked into that with, through that. So she put something simple together to be able to accommodate that. So rather than getting the full $1,500, they may get, $500, they may get $600. They don't have to do a lot of the state certification tests.
Okay. And bottom line is bus drivers, and we're in good shape. I want to keep it that way.
And to be honest with you, this isn't going to happen very often, but it's something that it's good to have in place.
Is there somebody there right now that's in that situation?
We did. We
Okay.
had somebody who was in it. So and that's what I say that. And then Tammy and I started talking about that. We don't have anything in place for that. And that's when we started working.
It's a recruitment tool.
It is.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No old business. Policy updates for 4103. And I think we did have end of that, is it correct?
It's on the policy and
Yeah.
the change from the public comment.
Yeah, we put it out for public comment, and there was what we more deemed as a,
Well, heard from Mr. Kirby, this policy, as it was written before with the black line through it, that would have been 22 absences allowed. We were condoning chronic absenteeism. When the state came out and said 18, either excused or unexcused for the year, and our policy was allowing 22, and we were exempting them from exams. That's why that was, and plus we had gotten several comments that it was a lot of days. It was to mirror a previous policy we had years ago, and it was 5 and 5. So I'm not 100% sure how the 11 got there, but I'm thinking that it was originally 5 and 5, and it got added together, and
we'll chalk it up to a typo.
I don't know. But Mr. Kirby came down and said that's, we're
But the
gonna
comments
come
were,
in.
the comments were in the direction of how we
It
changed.
was too many.
Yes.
It was too many absences.
Yes.
So
To be a,
One clarification, if I could. It says they have more than 5 excused or 1 or more unexcused. So if they have, should it just read more than one excused absence, unexcused absence? It's 1 or more. So they have 1 unexcused absence then they're going to be taking the exams.
One unexcused.
Okay. I just want to clarify,
One unexcused.
because the way it read was that was the way it read.
Unexcused, yeah.
Now, this is going to take effect.
That was the second question. Next semester.
Second semester.
So
Yeah.
first semester is what?
We have a CURT policy in place, and it does have a thing that says that a principal's discretion. So whatever they have worked on and decided for this semester, we're going to allow them to do that in their building.
Which is very
Because I-
reasonable.
Yeah, and then this will take effect second semester.
Hey, this, just for clarification. The student has 5 skewed absences. Will they be taking more than one unexcused? Will they be taking the semester exams in all their classes?
If it's in any class, it says.
Or vice
Per
versa?
class person. Per class. So you have a child that's there every day and then they leave at the end and they miss all their, last period class.
They come late.
Yeah, or they come late. They're gonna take the exam in that first
Okay,
period.
I just want to make sure I was thinking correctly.
Figuring that.
All right, is there a motion?
Burn them.
This has been,
Are
for
you
30-day
making
comment
that
period.
change right there? I'm sorry, before we go on. Are we making
What's
that
the-
change?
Yeah, what's in there, what
For
currently
one
is with the,
unexcused?
with the strike through, what you're seeing there has the strike through.
I think it's how it's written.
Yeah, it shouldn't it, I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to read and? I don't know,
Or,
one, take out or more. I don't know, one or more. It just seems
5 excused or
One unexcused absence.
Just any,
any unexcused absence.
any.
Yeah, because it,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, 5 excused or any unexcused absences per class per semester.
It's,
I mean, yeah,
I agree.
it's still within the spirit.
It's still-
of what-
yeah, right.
what the standard,
Yeah.
So that's just
As long as
language.
the content is the same.
the other question was, in the comments, there was a lot of discussion in regards to 25, weighting the exam 25%.
It's, or 10%, that's a
10%.
different policy.
I know, I understand
Okay,
that. Yeah,
great.
yeah, no, I understand that. But
Yeah.
is that something that we can go back and look at as well? Has it already been looked at? I mean,
Think that the committee can
Yeah.
look at that.
because I think that there's relevance in every comment in this public comment was made that they wanted to weight them 25% of the grade. So I think it warrants discussion.
For sure.
And that's again, the second semester, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Well,
probably about by the time they get done
I
maybe
think
next
that.
year.
I would say this is-
Yeah.
But I hope to get that done by the end of the year,
I would say, why not
so they
just wait
can
till
write their policy manual.
Put all this in place
We
next
just
year,
had that conversation today.
do all this next year rather than try and hurry up and squeeze it into the second semester.
Well, that attendance incentive came out at maybe our first principals meeting in August or
Yeah.
something, and they said, "Did we look at that?"
But, and if we
So-
don't do it for the second semester, then it reverts back to the same thing we have for this semester of school to school. So I'd rather it be uniform.
But the grading policy, we'll put back.
Yeah,
in
that can be-
committee.
that
We'll
might
have that
take-
ready
That
for
can be
next-
independent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
And it can be ready by the start of next year.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. This has been on 30-day comment period. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us down to personnel matters with the personnel agenda addendum, and you have both of those in front of you. Is there a motion for A and B of personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No legal disciplinary matters. Board member comments. Mr. Tucker.
Again, thank you all for being here, and you folks that are watching, thank you for turning your phones or your iPads or TVs on. Certainly appreciate it. Rather you be here, but
I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Hope,
she's good.
No comments.
Mr. Devon,
Nope, I'm all clear. Thank you.
and I'm good. So with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Children, go in peace.